The White House says it is looking into the mysterious string of disappearances and deaths of at least 10 high-profile American scientists. Now, many of them tasked with...
Some of the audio might sound a little different. I changed the speed because I didn't want this video to, take forever. So if some of the audio sounds a little funky, that's why. But
studying UFOs or nuclear research, all of them have either died or mysteriously vanished, dating back to mid-2023. Now, these deaths and disappearances include several high-level astrophysicists, as well as research scientists, college professors, military leaders, and administrative assistants, and many on this list having top security clearance and a vast knowledge of America's top secrets. Now, the McCaslin and Reza had been working together on a government-funded materials project.
Look at all these people.
McCaslin was overseeing.
I should have paused that.
10 American scientists who have either gone missing or died since mid-2024. They all reportedly had access to classified nuclear or aerospace material. Is anybody investigating this to see if these things are connected?
I've seen the report, Peter. I haven't spoken to our relevant agencies about it. I will certainly do that and we'll get you an answer. If true, of course, that's definitely something I think this government and administration would deem worth looking into. So let me do that for you.
The time on this, and this is such a perplexing case. So many questions here.
Cool,
what is standing out
He's
to
one
you
of
the
the
most
best
about the
on
general's
News
disappearance?
Nation. Great stuff.
Well, hi, Natasha. The thing that worries me most of all is the question, does the general not want to be found? I know some people are pointing towards possible suicide, but I was happy to see in that report that Alex clarified that there's no evidence the general was suicidal, and his wife has actually spoken very highly of his mental capacities. And friends of his who travelled with him, they tell me that a week earlier he'd actually cycled 60 miles. So this is not a man who was at the end of his life, somebody who was contemplating possible mental incapacity. He wasn't suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's. There doesn't seem to be any motivation for suicide. I do think...
But he cycled 60 miles the previous week before going missing, so he was pretty fit. In fact, I think I even mentioned this on a previous video, so I guess I'll just...
No, the possibility of foul play. Is there somebody who has interceded to take the general out of the picture? He was a man with some of the most sensitive US military intelligence secrets in his head, especially particle beam technology, and as Alex acknowledged, he was involved in abortive attempts prior to the Hillary Clinton-Donald Trump election campaign in 2016 to negotiate with John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, about, believe it or not, UAP transparency. There was a discussion underway in which General McCaslin was involved. It's a matter of public record.
So he was involved in what was going to be UAP disclosure. And what a lot of these other people, I should say scientists, intelligence, whatever they are, a lot of those people had that information too, or pieces of information that could point towards UAP disclosure or any sort of information about it.
That his emails were part of emails being circulated where it was being discussed that Hillary Clinton, as president, would be making a disclosure about UAPs. And as we know, the disappearance of General McCaslin closely follows the...
I'm kind of glad that plan didn't happen, because I don't know if I would have believed it if it came from Hillary Clinton. But then, makes you wonder, some people are going to then say, well, you're going to believe it if Trump tells you? Well, I guess we just got to see, right? We just got to see. But there's been a lot happening, and something's up. Something's up. And I think people know it. People can feel it. Something's up.
Announcement by President Trump that he will, and he has pledged to do this, be making a disclosure about UAPs, extraterrestrials.
It better be.
There are these 10 missing scientists with access to classified stuff, nuclear material, aerospace. They've all gone missing or turned up dead in the last couple months. Based on what you've been briefed, what do you think is happening here? And do you think that this is connected or totally
I hope it's not a coincidence.
Well, I hope it's random, but we're going to know in the next week and a half. I just left the meeting on that subject, so pretty serious stuff. But we're going to be now.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I don't know, coincidence, if you whatever you want to call it. But some of them were very important people, and we're going to look at it over the next.
Do you guys think it was a coincidence?
As you heard, the president can't say yes or no publicly yet, but the mystery remains. Let's bring in House Oversight Committee member, Missouri Congressman.
I mean, especially in this fringe topic of UFOs, I'll just say UFO. There's stories everywhere about whether it's Men in Black, trying to get people to not tell their story, people getting paid off or being threatened. And in fact, I think this even gets into that, so I'll just continue.
Eric Burleson, who is calling for the FBI to get involved. Congressman, when did you first find out about this?
My office found out about it last year. We sent a letter to the FBI about a gentleman named Matthew Sullivan, who actually we had reached out to. He was scheduled to come in for an interview. Within 2 weeks, he had suspiciously committed suicide. That report was referred to the Office of Inspector General. They deemed it credible and urgent. They then referred it to the FBI. So this is not the first that we've heard of this. That was the first that we became aware of.
The president was briefed extensively yesterday, and he's worried about it. You know, we hear about the undisclosed UFO program that more and more people are pushing to get answers on. Is there a relation to any of that from which you could share with us?
There certainly is. So General McCaslin, for example, is someone that we had reached out to twice to try to get some answers from. He is someone who has a critical role in working for the Air Force, particularly when it came to research. He was the one that oversaw a lot of this advanced research. He was someone that was very difficult to get a hold of, but we reached out to him twice, and then he just mysteriously disappeared.
So that brings mysteriously disappeared. Worthy of a all hands on deck investigation, this seems to be it.
This is a rattling call to pay attention to this issue and make sure that our nation's top scientists are safe and secure. This is too coincidental, and so we have to be investigating this. We need to have our nation's top investigators, the FBI, and every agency looking into this matter.
8 have been. I know one of the scientists that came out and said they thought that they were being threatened and stalked.
Yeah, we've heard that from multiple cases where they've all felt some form of threat.
That was very alarming, the way you said that, at least.
It was elaborating on some stuff that we'd asked for, and it was important to get this person in a secure setting to where we could ask him these questions. And there was...
So there have been different reports over the years. Some reports that there have been pieces of machinery that were found that did not seem earthly. And then there have been reports about life that is not earthly.
I do this because I feel like there's so many people that just aren't onto this, and it drives me crazy. I mean, I have an insatiable desire to always try to figure out what the truth is. Maybe that's part of it, but some people's either denial, some people just straight up like to deny these facts, and others are just ignorant to it. And maybe some know and they just don't have the time. Whatever, that's cool. But if you have hobbies or whatever, you have time to look. This is the most fascinating topic in the world. I mean, give me one that's better, please.
Which one of those two or both are you talking about? A form of life that is not earthly, or just something mechanical that's not earthly?
I say you'd be safe to say both.
The way you described this, whatever happened at this meeting, this briefing that was happening, was there something that if we knew, we would feel that we are in danger? You said you wouldn't sleep at night if you knew the things that I saw in these briefings.
I think we're at danger of this. I mean, if these things exist as I think they do, they could have destroyed us with a blink of an eye. But I do think they have the technology and the capabilities of something that we can't understand or we can't grasp.
What I want to make sure I'm understanding is a member of our government has told you and others, I guess, that there is a form of alien life and machinery which maybe brought this living creature here that interacted in some form with people?
Yeah, they have. And they've... It's pretty wild. I know. But I'm just telling you, I'm not going to lie to you. I'd take a lie to tell you. You want to put me on a polygraph, I'll take it. But a very high-ranking naval official described, I've talked about this before, underwater craft, something big as a football field, moving at over 200 miles an hour. Don't even have a sub that'll probably do 40 miles an hour under the... and the last thing he said before he left my office was, it was kind of weird because he didn't go out he went out the side door, which nobody ever uses. And he looked at me, he pulled me up close, he said, "Tim, they're real." And that's the last thing he said to me. Put
a percentage on it that we have made contact with aliens.
Apparently they're real. They're walking among us. Disclosure isn't
100%.
100%.
What do we know, if anything, about these?
I gotta pause this. because a lot of people probably think disclosure is the government telling us UFOs are real. They've been here and they've been flying. We don't know, blah, 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 blah. Really, we already know UFOs have been flying around and unidentified aerial phenomena and USOs, unidentified submerged objects. Excuse me. They've been a thing for a very long time, and it really shouldn't be news to anybody. That's not disclosure. What disclosure would be including the non-human intelligence behind the craft. That would be disclosure, because we already know that these craft exist.
What your certainty would be at what percentage?
100%.
100%.
What do we know, if anything, about these 10 scientists?
It's actually more than that, actually, if you go back a little farther. But we know that they were medical defense industry or complex.
Military industrial complex. You kind of said it funny there.
With clearance.
I don't know why, but
high level clearance. And you figure 10 of them, that we'll just say the 10. If there were 10 chefs across this country disappeared or died mysteriously.
And don't forget McCaslin and all of those, they had the kind of information he's referring to, when he says, I have an individual that briefed me on such and such. These are the type of folks. And Burleson, the previous representative, congressman that was appearing before Tim Burchett here, even talks about that and employs David Grush now, since he was when he blew the whistle, he basically lost his job, but luckily he was employed.
So across this, just all around the spectrum on that, and it's
so true.
With clearance, many of them high level
clearance, and you figure 10 of them, that we'll just say the 10. If there were 10 chefs across this country disappeared or died mysteriously, people would start questioning what there were 10 used car salesmen, dealerships, 10 preachers, 10 whatever, 10 masseuses. I don't care. I think America would probably take notice, and I think they finally are taking notice, because this all fits in. And I know family members are going to say, well, they got nothing to do with the UFO, but generally they don't talk. They keep it. Most of those guys and gals are so locked down, they keep their mouth shut, because they didn't. Their nuclear secrets that they have would have already leaked out as well.
Now this,
that's the locomotive coming out. That's all right.
This I had to add to the.
I didn't buy a ticket, but okay.
This came from Cities of the Underworld.
The tunnel
that was
system
on
that
History
Lance and his
Channel.
team are digging is 5 miles long and 19 feet in diameter, running nearly 20.
And the reason I had to post this was just to show the abilities of our government and what some of the contractors have access to. If our Congress has access to this, then you can bet there's others with deep pockets that have it.
Stories below the surface. When it's done, 850 billion gallons of sewage overflow will run through it every year.
And again, I sped it up.
3 rivers above. While this isn't a secret government tunnel,
just so it
I'd
doesn't
like to
take
find out
forever,
how they're building this public project, to see if you could even dig a tunnel system like this without anyone above ground knowing about it. So we're heading straight into the belly of the beast.
Everything we're seeing is the machine itself. It's basically a 400-foot-long worm working itself through the earth. And as it goes, it's building its own tunnel behind it.
I'm actually inside the TBM, the tunnel boring machine that's used to dig this kind of massive tunnel. This thing is longer than a football field. And the machine
What's fascinating is obviously it's drilling, but it's actually placing,
as it moves
as you can see here,
This is a probe drill. And when
it's
they're
placing the
pushing,
panels.
driving that machine,
So it drills and builds, baby.
Pounds of force. Wow. So what happens to the rock it carves away?
As the rock is cut up, it falls into the bottom of the excavation chamber, and it's mixed with water slurry mix, and it's pumped all the way to the surface, then hauled out.
Tons and tons of debris.
About 35 tons an hour.
Really?
The
This is
huge
conventional,
cutter face is
by
obviously
the way.
an effective tool when it comes to digging a tunnel.
some more
But 35
technology
tons of
coming up.
debris an hour being shot back up to the surface would make it impossible to dig a network like this in secret. To get rid of all that debris, you'd need an endless parade of dump trucks hauling the rubble away. Between that and the expensive worksite itself, enemies could easily monitor a tunnel project from spy satellites. So, looking into this theory...
In other words, you know, you can't build tunnels conventionally like that without the, you know, foreign adversaries being able to see what you're doing. Given that all the debris has to be pumped up in a mix of water and then taken out with trucks, and not to mention all the other facilities for people and tools and whatnot.
That the U.S. government and military have a top secret network of underground bases. They need to create a very different technology, one that doesn't produce a mountain of debris on the surface. As far as I know, there's no drill that can make rock and dirt evaporate into thin air. Or is there?
Method and apparatus for tunneling by melting.
David says he may have the smoking gun that shows how the secret underworld is being built.
All around the Nellis Air Force Base and Area 51 is a vast network of tunnels. And many of these tunnels are in the base, but some of these tunnels and entrances go outside the base.
And I also got to mention, in LA, there's tunnels that are abandoned, and they're actually amazing. There's blocked off. There's some secret entrances that people have found, but they're incredible underground facilities and tunnels that just go on forever. And if those were abandoned, you know they're making some incredible stuff now.
Since the 1950s.
Especially after you see this technology.
The locals in that area have reported seeing convoys of military vehicles driving down the road and then just suddenly disappearing. On one hand, it doesn't surprise me. It's a military base. It's very secretive. And it's huge, too. Right. What I want to know is, could someone create a massive underground base without anybody knowing about it? They do have the technology. This is a 1972 patent from DARPA. The United States patent, September 26, 1972. Method and apparatus for tunneling by melting. Melting. So they're using heat to actually tunnel. They're using heat to tunnel through and melt rock. But with the thermonuclear tunneling device, you don't need that. It's very clean. It doesn't create.
And what I didn't show is David Childress here actually shows a map of supposed tunnels that go from New York, Virginia, straight to LA and everywhere in between. Why wouldn't there be if they've got this technology? You're about to see some small scale version of it.
A lot of waste and rubble. You guys can still be in charge and in touch with various parts of the military from these underground bases. But here it is in a United States patent. It's crazy. Come to it.
First, we'll replicate traditional hard rock drilling, like the kind we saw back at Three Rivers, using an extremely scaled down drill bit and a scaled down chunk of rock.
There we go.
Nice.
We made a tunnel and we made a mess.
Yes, you did.
If this was a mountainside and this was a big tunnel, I mean, this is just piles and piles of the stuff. If you're going to try to be sneaky about it, if you're just sort of doing it under the radar, this is not the way to go.
Right.
Now we'll fire up the plasma torch to around 2200 degrees Fahrenheit, the temperature of the patented nuclear drill bit. I want to see if that technology can create a tunnel.
And speaking of the patented drill bit, again, it's nuclear powered. We already know there's nuclear generators that can fit in the back of a semi. So certainly they can use that. In fact, they wouldn't even have to use nuclear. They could use fuel of some sort, but nevertheless, they can do this. They can tunnel. This is low scale, so you can envision it on a very large scale. And I'll just show it.
Right through that rock, and I don't see any kind of debris around it. Look how clear that is.
Yeah,
that's the glass.
What impressed me was Andrea went through this in mere seconds.
Exactly.
It took us, I don't know.
In other words, they can make tunnels without any debris having to be excavated, and furthermore, it makes the structure of the tunnel stronger since it turns all the rock to glass on the edge. And, these are 30-foot diameter tunnels, man.
40 minutes to do with a conventional drill.
So there you go. I mean, that sells it pretty well to me. You can scale this up very easily, in my mind anyway, that this could create...
Also, not to mention the government has eminent domain over technologies that people invent, and obviously not all of them, but some really awesome inventions. The military says, hey, we want that, and they'll slap eminent domain on it, and it gets also slapped with a top secret or classified status.
Massive tunnel systems in a fraction of time with no debris. I mean, out of sight, out of mind. You could be doing this all over the place as long as that technology exists. I mean, that's the leap. Assuming that a nuclear drill has been developed, then we've got our answer. And that basically proves it right there.
Yeah.
Secret.
If they can do it, I mean, if they're going to do it traditionally and they have the technology to do it, which I would argue is still traditional, it's just using, more modern tech. As things become more modern and established and become the standard, it is then conventional. So therefore, I would consider it conventional, even though it's slapped with top secret and most people don't know about it. It's certainly something they're using. And I have a animation that comes from a movie that I'm gonna play here that gives you an idea of what they're doing.
Underground even look like White Sulphur Springs.
It's still grand, but back in the day, this was one of the premier places.
Oh, yeah.
This hotel was a hotspot for celebrity weddings and high society types. But for years, it had a big secret hiding beneath its shiny exterior. The Greenbrier was built in 1913, but in 1948, the resort entered into an agreement with the United States government, and a new construction began. The hotel would add another.
You know who else gets contracts with the government? Excuse me. A bunch of military contractors looking to build the same exact thing, if not way greater, on a much bigger, greater scale.
Another wing, complete with new rooms and an exhibition hall. But meanwhile, underneath, the government would covertly construct a secret fallout shelter for high-ranking government officials that no one in the public would know about until over 30 years later. Humongous two-story bunker is the length of 2 football fields, extending 718 feet deep into the West Virginia countryside.
718 feet? That's quite a ways.
You come out with
and I cut it out as they're going down the elevator. He makes a joke about it too. How eerie it is to go down that far.
It looks like a regular part of the hotel. Sure. But then it turns out.
Now this looks like a nuclear bunker. Insane. All right, so this is where you really get a sense of the scope of this operation.
Yes. This is the part that the government has exclusive control over.
And that's just...
Beyond that big door, only people with top-level clearances will be allowed in by the U.S. military, who control the facility.
And this is an abandoned facility, by the way. I mean, I'm sure maybe in an emergency, if they were in the vicinity, maybe they could use it. But this is an abandoned facility, meaning they have better, greater, bigger, better facilities now. So
this tunnel leads
right under our feet, and we don't even know it.
To a complex that would house more than 1,000.
Or do we?
People for over 6 months.
Imagine coming down to this level of wearing fatigues and, quite a shock to the system psychologically.
But who exactly was this elaborate shelter built for?
Ah, this is amazing. Look at that. There are hundreds of seats in here.
There are 435 seats in here.
435, the amount of...
The House of Representatives.
There you go.
All right.
So this is for the Congress?
Yes, and then there's a smaller room on the other side for the Senate. This was an emergency relocation center for the legislative branch of the federal government. This was one component of the continuity of government program.
So the separation of powers is behind this whole thing. Even in the face of nuclear disaster, the U.S. government still has to be maintained as a structure that's in the Constitution.
Exactly.
So the story of this place is really hiding in plain sight in the biggest sense of the word.
For sure.
You and I have.
Now this, you probably already know what this is from. We all know who Mia Jovovich is. That's her. She's been in a lot of phenomenal films. My favorite's got to be The Fifth Element. But to stay on task here, I played this because it's it just gives you a sense of the scope of what we're doing, and even this illustration that I'm about to show doesn't compare to what we really have.
The same employer. We all work for the Umbrella Corporation. The mansion above us is an emergency entrance to the hive.
And I like how I'm just going to say, so they're working for the Umbrella Corp, which we could substitute with some military industrial contractor. I'll just say that.
U.S. security operatives placed there to protect that entrance.
Which are places that congressmen have been to, and they've been turned away. Our tax dollars paying for these facilities, and then Congress can't get access to them. Absolutely
Accessing
insane.
schematic of the hive.
Raccoon City.
I'm sure some of them they do get access to, and obviously they don't talk about them because it's classified. But nevertheless,
nearest urban center. The
here's an
mansion
idea.
where we found.
Here's an idea of what we've really got going on, and again, on a much larger scale than this.
And through which we gained access to the train, which in turn brought us to the hive. The hive itself is located underground, deep beneath the streets of Raccoon City. A top-secret research facility owned and operated by the Umbrella Corp.
Tell me I'm just wild. I think it's quite obvious that this is a pretty accurate representation of what's actually happening right under our feet.
The hive houses over 500 technicians, scientists, and support staff. They live and work underground. Their research is of the highest importance. Its nature is classified. Our position on the map is indicated by heat signature.
The White House says it is.
And that's that. It's pretty wild, man. I'll actually play. Here's a couple stories real quick. Pretty interesting stories, nevertheless.
Same. I'm with you.
Right. We're just two guys.
We're just trying to conduct business
That's
and operate within a world that seems to have physical laws that are easily.
17 years old. My mom and dad bought a restaurant in a neighboring town in western Pennsylvania.
By the way, this is John Kiriakou. He spent some time behind bars for revealing techniques we were using at Guantanamo Bay. He wrote a book about it. I won't get into the politics of that. And then
in Amish country,
the other gentleman is Brandon Fugel, who owns Skinwalker Ranch. And I love that series because it's all science driven, fact-based, real stuff. And there's some wild stuff happening for sure. But I'll get right back to this video.
Western Pennsylvania. And so my dad and I used to work midnight shift on the weekends. And we would drive from our home in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, through Amish country to Sharon, Pennsylvania. It was about 20 miles. And it's very, very dark in Amish country. They don't use electricity. And so one Friday night at 10:30, I'm talking about 1981, I was 17 years old, and we're driving up Route 60 North, and we see a brilliant flash of white light. And we both look up in the sky. There's a second flash and then a third flash. And then this orange trapezoid just lit up in the shape that you would say, is stereotypical of a report of some kind of flying disc.
UFO.
A UFO. We pulled over to the side of the road. I said to my dad, "What is that?" He said, "I don't know." So we got out of the car. We're standing there just staring at it. It's hovering, not making any sound at all. A guy pulls up behind us. He gets out of his car and says, "What is that?" Yeah. My dad said, "I don't know." And then it just went at this fantastic speed.
Yeah.
Unlike anything I'd ever seen before. And it just vanished just like that. We stood there for a while thinking, is it going to come back? Is it going to do something?
Right.
And then finally we got in the car and drove away. And I said to my father, should we call somebody? Should we like call the cops or something?
Yeah.
And he said, to say what? We saw a flying saucer and it flew away?
Yeah.
They'll think we're nuts. So we didn't tell anybody until we told my mom the next day, but I'll never forget it as long as I live.
Yourself, you've experienced it.
Yeah, I hear it was enough to burn a place in my memory, for good.
You had a witness. Was it multiple witnesses?
Yeah, there were
with you?
3 of us.
It's very similar to my own experience. I bought the ranch. Lived at that. My helicopter didn't see or feel anything unusual.
Interesting.
It just seemed like a strikingly beautiful, diverse backdrop in the middle of this Uinta Basin that is surrounded by thousands of acres of Indian tribal land. But 6 months into it, I had an experience much like you. I was hosting a visiting physician, a doctor, a scientist who had worked at Area 51, whose number one item on his bucket list was to visit Skinwalker Ranch, and he changed everything for me. On that day, which was October 14th of 2016, I went from being a skeptic to not just a believer, but like you, an experiencer.
Mm-hmm.
After witnessing electromagnetic anomalies, equipment malfunction, even our smartphones all drained from 80% to 0 within a matter of minutes. And one person was rendered completely catatonic.
Happens on the show all the time
during
if
the
you
visit.
watch
An
it.
attending security officer, as we were driving across the ranch to retrieve our smartphones hours into the visit, the gentleman in the back of this open-air Polaris UTV Ranger that I was driving started shouting, "Stop the vehicle." And I looked back at him, and he was waving his arms up in the air, and I thought, what is he talking about? And as I brought that vehicle to an abrupt stop, and there was dust flying everywhere, I looked where he was pointing right up ahead. Right ahead of us, above this mesa plateau that runs the entire expanse of the property east-west, was a silver disc-like object, a 40, 50-foot long, silver grayish disc-like object that was about 100 feet above the mesa in broad daylight. Right
now, do you guys think these 2 gentlemen are making these stories up? I really don't think so. Sure, there's people out there that do, but these are genuine stories. These are genuine experiences, rather. And in fact, after this, I've got a gentleman named Richard Dolan who actually lives in upstate New York. I believe, well, he used to be a professor at Rochester and lived in the area. I think he's still up here. I'd love to get a interview with him.
Above us. And we were all sitting there pointing at it in awe. And within seconds, it changed position. It darted to the left.
See, they defy the laws of physics.
It was in the blink of an eye. It could change position. Seconds later, it dropped to what appeared to be a low hover above the ranch mesa there. A few seconds later, after we all expressed our continued shock, it darted to the right. And then, within moments, it was gone. In the blink of an eye, it either darted off at some Mach 100 at some speed that would be difficult to quantify, or it just blinked out of this reality or was able to cloak its identity, but it was gone. The entire incident, which changed my entire worldview in that moment and took me from being a skeptic to an experiencer, was all of 20 seconds.
And he's skipping something there from a skeptic to a believer and then an experiencer. Which is funny because I've experienced one. It wasn't it wasn't as fantastic as their stories were. In fact, the one person that was with me unfortunately has passed away now. But I certainly saw one. It was small, just 3 lights, and when I stopped the vehicle and backed up, it was much farther away. And but I didn't see any structure. It was like these 3 lights that were white and red. But nevertheless, you don't care about my stories. You want to hear these stories.
It was life-changing. From that point forward, I had to either acknowledge the reality that there's more at play in our world than meets the eye,
and I think that's the important piece here is we all have to acknowledge the reality that this is happening, and we're just waiting for daddy government to say that it is. It would be nice to have that confirmation from the government, but we already know. I mean, most people probably haven't done deep dives like I have on this type of stuff, but man, I've went down rabbit holes upon rabbit holes upon rabbit holes, and I sniff out the bullshit, and I find credible ones. In fact, that Richard Dolan, that's exactly what he does. In fact, he even has a system to grade sightings and their authenticity and whatnot. But I'll continue.
I could deny it and simply ignore it and move on and pretend that it didn't happen. And
which a lot of people would
as
do.
You've seen, I ended up doubling down, spending millions of dollars. And from that point forward, I began using science and technology to monitor and document the reality of the phenomena at this
Skinwalker Ranch. So that's that. Now, that was a lot to take in. So we certainly have people missing of, people of the utmost importance in the scientific community that just go missing, And as Tim Burchett said, if there was 10 civilians, honestly, I make his point without 10 people missing. Like, you have one blonde-haired girl named Penny that goes missing in the Grand Canyon's national news, and I mentioned this in a previous video, but it's ridiculous that 10 scientists have gone missing and like nobody's talking about it other than News Nation. They're pretty good about it. It's kind of sickening. I'm sick of seeing petty shit being peddled and then the important stuff not being talked about. And towards the end of that video, it becomes obvious that we clearly have underground military bases and massive, they call them DUMBs, deep underground military bases, or dumps, deep underground military facilities. There's a lot of acronyms in this field, I guess. I hesitate to say, through my investigation, but really it kind of is my own personal pursuit of finding the truth. And I think we're getting very close to it. And I hope you guys are too. And I'm just cutting the video short. I don't want it to be a super long video, so I'm just stitching this in at the end. I do have some cases that Richard Dolan investigated, as well as Ross Coulthart and some others, but mainly, the credible people investigating credible cases, so I'd like to bring those to you, and I certainly will in videos coming up. So stay tuned. I do appreciate the likes, subscriptions, whatever, comment. And when I say comment, if you want to troll me, go ahead. I'll be flattered. But you can't tell me it's not the most important thing, topic in the world, because we know UFOs are real. We know UAP are real. And so now it's what's the intelligence behind them? And I would love for anybody to make a case to tell me what's more important. Somebody can say the war, which I think could be a distraction, or maybe not, but it seems like we're doing everything we can to not talk about this issue when more people than ever want to know about it. And if you're one that didn't really know about it, now you do. And hopefully you do some more research, because it's probably more important than what you're doing. This research and looking into this topic, I haven't made money doing it. And so some people might say, well, I'm making money, so this is more important. Well, no, when it comes to mankind, your job is probably not significant whatsoever to the global picture. This phenomena is far greater than anything any one of us can possibly do, unless the only exception would be bringing forth actual evidence. And the closest we got are just really good, accurate, investigative stories, and people that are relentless in the pursuit. There's so many people I could name, but certainly George Knapp, Ross Coulthart, David Gross for being a whistleblower, Commander David Fravor. The name Dave comes up a lot, which is kind of ironic. My family calls me David. Obviously, Rep Burchett and Burleson, Paulina Luna, and there's others, but just want to bring awareness to the subject, and hopefully you guys can jump on board and start seeing the truth for what it is, because there's a greater truth, and I think it's global. And I think Congress, they're trying to knock on the door of private contractors and the Pentagon, and they're fighting like hell. They don't want to give it up. They don't want to give up the information. And presidents have been too, I hate to say it, but they've been too chicken shit to reveal this issue, because people have been killed for less. I mean, there are UFO connections to JFK. I'm not even going to go down the rabbit hole about that, but there are. And Eisenhower, Reagan, and now Trump. And even, with Obama's, with his statement a couple weeks back saying that they're real, but I haven't seen them, and area, whatever you call it, 51 isn't it just, we know it's a massive, deep underground military facility. What's funny is the Bob Lazar story ties into this, and I'll just make this real brief because I want to end this video. I wasn't sure whether I believe Bob Lazar. It seems like he's not capable of getting into too much detail, even though he's trying to get his story out there. Well, if you're trying to get your story out there and believable, give as much detail as possible, but he seems so vague when he talks about this ship. It doesn't mean I don't like the guy. Seems like a likable guy, and maybe he, can't talk about certain things, and people. He was threatened and deterred from talking about it. He's talked about it, so I don't have to really elaborate on that. But he did work at Los Alamos Labs. That's been proven. He took Janet flights, which are the white and red airplanes that fly civilians with blacked out windows into Area 51. And apparently he took those. But anyway, hope you guys can dig into this, because I'm certainly going to be digging into it and bringing more videos to you. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed this energy drink. And my breakfast that's out there. That's pretty much ready. So I'm going to go get that and enjoy myself. I hope you guys enjoy your day. Please comment. I just would love to hear your thoughts. And I don't necessarily see, if you have an opposing view, it's not an argument, it's a debate, which means we can respectfully talk to each other without, slinging elementary grade comments at each other. But anyway, much love to y'all. Hope you enjoyed this video. Until the next one, peace out. Enjoy.